A major part of every Powerapps development is the visualization of your data. In other words, how can you present that background data to your user? One of the most common ways to do that is by using galleries, and that is exactly what today's video is about. My name is Jochen, I am a Power Platform consultant at Cegeka, and I suggest we get started. Hey guys, welcome back to this beginner level series on Microsoft Powerapps, where I am showing you a lot of the basic building blocks by developing our own office supplies ordering app from scratch. So if you want to start at the very beginning, there is a link down in the description to the entire playlist, so don't hesitate to check that out. But if you are here just for the galleries, also fine, because that is our focus for today. But before we dive back into the mighty Powerapps editor, let's have a look at SharePoint first, because that is where our data resides. I have created a very simple SharePoint site called Office Ordering Site, and from this site we are going to use 4 lists in the entire app we are building. First of all, we have the categories list, which is a simple list of 5 records defining our item categories. We'll have a title column, aka the category name, we'll have category ID, category image, and that is it. The second list we have is called items, and it's basically the same thing. We have a title column, once again, item ID, item price, and item image. And you might notice that category ID is in both lists. Well, spoiler, we are going to use that very column to kind of link our data sources together in the app. Third list on the menu is our order header list, which will be kind of an output list where we will save order data coming from our app. And the very last one is called order lines, is the exact same thing as the order header, but of course here we will store line information instead of header data. So now that you have seen the data that I actually want to present to our app's user, the main question of course is, how the hell do we do that? Well, step 1 is to create some sort of link from within our app to the SharePoint list that I just showed you. First of all, obviously, let's go to our solution and just open our app in edit mode. To add data sources, you have to go to this icon right here and then go add data. You could scroll all the way down and search within all the connectors that are available, but the easiest way is simply to type in SharePoint. This is the one that we need, so I'm going to click that, connect directly. And normally Powerapps should detect this automatically depending on your user, of course. But if the site that you want to connect to does not show up immediately, you can always type in the URL right there. In my case, here it is, Office Ordering Site. Click that and it will simply show you the available lists that we can connect to. In my case, I need all of them except for the default documents list. Connect, and there we go. So by now you guys and the app are aware of the data that resides on SharePoint, but I haven't done anything with it in my app itself. And that is about to change, and you guessed it, this is where galleries come in. If I go back to my tree view and if I navigate to my new order screen, there we go. This is how we left it after the last video. Once again, if you want to see those, there is a link to the entire playlist in the description. So my main goal for this screen is to have a gallery on the left side here with the categories in it, and another gallery on the right side on top with the items. And to finish off the screen, we're gonna have 2 buttons as well at the bottom, but we'll see about that later. Now I could just go insert and type in gallery, and as you can see we have a couple of options here, but in the last video I created my template screen, which already has 2 kind of styled and ready to go galleries. One vertical gallery right here, which is the one that I want, and also one horizontal that's coming up next. So I'm going to select the vertical gallery, Ctrl C for copy, go back to my new order screen, Ctrl V, paste. Now I'm not going to select my data source yet, we'll do that manually. The first thing that I'm going to do is to resize it a little bit, something like this, rename it to categories _NOS for new order screen. And now I'm going to go to my items property, which is right here, which is by default set to custom gallery sample. And I'm going to say categories because that is the exact name of the data source that I added when I linked those SharePoint lists. So now the gallery knows which data source to show, but it doesn't know which fields of that data source that I want to see. We are going to change that, of course, by saying add an item from the insert pane. Just click it. And in this case, we need one text label and we need one image. And because Powerapps is kind of smart and we only have one image column on SharePoint in that categories list, it already knows that, for example, the image, when I click it and I see the image property, it is set to this item.category image. Should this be the wrong image if you have multiple image columns or whatever, simply remove this, do another dot, and this will show you all the available fields from the SharePoint list that you can now link to this gallery element control. Let's set it back to category image, and this one is also correct, this item.title, which is simply our category name, of course. I'm just gonna resize and reposition the two controls like this. Make the font a little bit bigger, let's say 15, and let's go for bold. And you have seen, and I know that I have 5 categories and I want to see them all at once. I don't want to have a scroll bar like we have right now by default in this gallery. First of all, if you want to get rid of the scroll bar, simply a property on the right side here. You can also replace it with a navigational arrow if you want to, like this. It's kind of personal preference, but what I want to do is simply get rid of the scroll bar by making sure that the scroll bar is no longer needed. So what I need to do is select the element of the gallery, make it smaller, just so I know that all 5 categories fit. There we go, the scroll bar is gone. I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller. Yes. Our 5 categories without a scroll bar on the left side of the screen. Done. And by the way, the best tip I can give you when it comes to selecting and adding controls to a gallery is this. Especially in your humble beginnings as a Powerapps developer, make sure that you know what you have selected when you insert other controls. What I mean by that is, first of all, you can select the entire gallery, which has its own properties even, but you can also select by clicking the pencil here, the gallery element. And then the third option is to select controls within the element. For example, our image or our text label, which by the way, I forgot to rename. So let me quickly do that. And the final thing I want to do for this left side categories gallery is make sure that we see the element that is selected. And the way to change that is to go to the gallery itself and go to the template fill property, which is basically set to transparent by default. And this is the formula that I want to change. So instead of this default value, I'm going to use an if statement, and I'm going to go if this item dot is selected, comma. So it's going to evaluate this formula for each and every item in the categories gallery. And if the item is selected, I want it to have a beautiful like red color, but slightly transparent, if you will. So I'm going to say RGBA 168, 0, 0.25, which is the alpha value. As you can see right there, it's a percentage, so it's 25%. Close the brackets, comma, if it's not selected, so all the other elements, they can simply stay transparent. Close the brackets. And immediately you can see our beautiful reddish color popping up. And if I go into preview mode, and I select another element in the gallery, you can see that instantly that color changes, which is exactly what I want. Just like all the other controls in Powerapps, galleries have a lot of different properties, and I'm not going to go over all of them. So if you have any questions whatsoever, drop them down in the comments. The second gallery on the same screen will be the horizontal gallery on the right, and it will contain the items. So I'm going to do a very similar thing, a little bit faster this time. Template screen, the horizontal gallery, copy, back to the new order screen, paste, resize this a little bit, something like this, rename to gal items underscore NOS, select the gallery, and the items property of course has to be items because that's the name of the actual data source, aka our SharePoint list. And for this element, I am going to use 2 text labels, so click here twice. Once again, an image, and finally a button. The 2 labels will be just above the button, and the item image can go like this on top. Obviously, rename everything. And now I'm going to check if the controls that I added actually have the correct SharePoint field behind it. It's quite obvious that this is in fact our item image. Once again, it's the only image column in that SharePoint list, so Powerapps is smart enough to do that. This is also correct, this item.title, beautiful. But this one, it's the item ID that it's currently showing, but I want to have it show the price. And instead of just going this item.item price, this item, by the way, is simply how you refer inside an element to the actual fields of the element. But since this is a price, so a currency field, if you will, we're gonna go a little bit more fancy than this, and I'm gonna paste my formula. And this is simply a way of formatting currency fields. I'm not gonna go into too much technical detail. This is simply the way how it looks, but I will leave a link to some more info on the formatting text function. But if I now go into preview mode, you will see a beautiful scroll bar where all my items that are in the SharePoint list are shown. And you can also see that it doesn't really matter which category I select. That's about to change. Because remember that field on SharePoint called category ID, which we can find in both categories and the items list? Well, we are going to use that exact field to kind of form a relationship data-wise between our two galleries. If I select my horizontal gallery, right now I just have the items data source in the items property. By doing it like this, we simply say, show me all the records that you can find in the SharePoint list, aka data source called items. But we want to have this filtered depending on which category we select. So we can literally use a filter function, and we can say filter, and what is my source? Well, my source is in fact the items data source, comma, and then it needs the logical test, which is actually my filter that we want to apply. And we want to say, only show me the records where the field or the value of category ID equals gal categories underscore NOS dot selected. So the at that point selected item in my left side gallery dot category ID. Close the brackets and magic happens, because now the app actually knows, if I go back into preview mode, the moment I click another category, it applies that filter on the fly, because the category ID changed. I think it's 3 for my third item right here. So on the fly, it filters all my items and only shows the records that have category ID 3. Same thing for binders and filing, you name it, basics applies. All the filters you need are now applied to our horizontal items gallery. The third and final gallery I want to show in today's video will be on not the new order screen, but the existing order screen, because in here I'm going to create a gallery that simply shows all the orders that are in the order header list on SharePoint. And instead of going over the same steps again creating the gallery, I'm just gonna go and snap my fingers. Magic. Not really though. All I did was add a couple of labels for the column heading. I added a toggle, more on that later, which is really simple by the way. Just go insert and type in toggle. And there it is. And of course I also added the vertical gallery to show all the records in my order header SharePoint list. But instead of literally showing all the records, I'm using the value of this toggle in the items property in my gallery. And what I'm saying here is, if the value of my toggle, so this toggle right here, you can see the green outline as well, if that value is false, like it is right now, so unticked if you will, then just literally show all the records. So order header then is my data source. But if it is not false, so if it is true, let me do that by holding down the Alt key. Doing that, you can see that this already changes, because then it will filter all the records and it will only show the records where my current email, so user function dot email, my current email is filled in the email column. And if we go to SharePoint and to the order header list, you can see that that is exactly what is happening, because this is my user's email address. Just another way of filtering the data that you actually show in a gallery. And for the final design touch in today's video, we are going back to the new order screen, because I am going to add 2 buttons at the bottom right here. Template screen, button, copy, new order screen, paste, paste. Let's reposition them like this. This button will say clear shopping basket. And this one will say confirm order with an enter in between, please. That's all I want to do for now, because to be honest, it's a little teaser for the next video. Because yes, we are now showing data in our app, but all we have used are external data connections. And in the next video in this beginner series, I'm going to show you how you can use internal data structures within Powerapp, being variables and collections. Super important and useful stuff. So once again, check out the link in the description to the entire playlist. And while you are at it, don't forget to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, comment down below if you have any questions whatsoever, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.